do want to talk about a player who struggled tonight and has really struggled in the month of December. I hate to talk about some struggles amidst this post game because, I mean, 54-point win for the Celtics, second largest in franchise history. The Raptors only 71 points tonight. The Celtics 125. Just a phenomenal game all around. But regardless, we do have to talk about a player who struggled during the month of December. And unfortunately, that is Al Horford. Now, Al Horford tonight, 0 of 7 from the floor, 0 of 6 from three. And in the month of December, because this is really where the conversation is going to hone in on with Al Horford, is this past month and his recent play this entire season. This month, Al Horford, 31 of 89 from the floor. That's 34.8% from the field. Terrible. From three, 89 of those shots, 66 of those have come from 3-point land, and he's 19 of 66 from three in the month of December. That's best for 28.8%. Al Horford cannot get it going offensively whatsoever for the Celtics right now. Yet tonight, of course, he did have, along with his putrid shooting line, he did have 4 assists, 6 rebounds, 2 steals, was part of the stock exchange. So
Yep.
he is doing other things for the Celtics aside from just contributing or really not contributing at all offensively. But Al Horford, right now, you look at those shooting lines, 66 of his 89 shots in the month of December came from 3-point land, and he ends the month of December off on an 0 of 7 performance from the field, 0 of 6 from 3-point land. And this is really the question I want to get into with Al Horford and his offensive game. Is Al Horford shooting too many outside shots from 3-point land? And is Al Horford settling too much to be a viable contributor on this Celtics offense? Franco, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the Celtics are playing a dangerous game with having Chris Stapps and Al Horford rotating in and out of the offense, and the Celtics have obviously been playing a 5-out offense, and we know uh, how much of an impact Al Horford can have from outside the 3-point line. However, it's almost a gamble putting him on the inside and having him trying to box out one of these younger guys like a Jakob Pertl or a Kelly Olynyk. And for tonight's example, I, I think that's a very dangerous spot for him just due to his age. And I'm not knocking out, and he's obviously, if he's not scoring, he has the IQ and the pedigree to contribute in other factors like he had tonight with assisting, setting up the hockey assist, being able to still function within the offense as his shot isn't falling. However, I think the amount of minutes he is playing right now isn't the amount that he should be. I think if he's on a more limited basis, not missing games or anything, but if he's starting to get like Peyton Pritchard minutes around like 20 to 25 minutes per game, that's when we'll see Al Horford as most effective at this point in his career. Once we start to get closer to the playoffs, obviously he'll be able to turn it up to that other level, be able to give that extra effort, be able to put in the effort to box out against these younger centers, these more athletic players on the court, because you got to give it to him. He's 38 years old. I wouldn't want to see Al Horford as much as I would actually like to see it, but I'm not expecting Al Horford to up fake and then drive to the paint and get a hard, um, make a hard contested layup. As much as it would be great for him to start to do that, add that to his arsenal. It's one of those things where Al Horford just is playing to his age. I think we're starting to see that athleticism start to dwindle a little bit, as even though we'll see sparks of it, he's still got it in him. He still has legs under him, but I think just getting Kristaps back to not even. I think Kristaps at full health. I mean, when I say full health, I mean being able to play Kristaps allocated, maybe miss a few more games this season, but him relying on Al Horford to muster the weight for the lack of Kristaps is very almost unfair for the Celtics and Joe Mazzulla to be asking of a 38-year-old player in the NBA.
And David, do you think Al Horford, the role on offense Al Horford has right now, is there a pathway for Al Horford to be more of a physically dominating player down low? Obviously, we're not going to see, 2016 Al Horford and with Atlanta out there on the floor because he's much past his prime in that regard. And Franco did kind of mention it. There are some physical concerns with Al Horford, but do you think Al Horford, they're using him a little bit too much on the perimeter in spots where he's not exactly the most efficient player for the Celtics on offense?
Yes, so I think two things can be true here. I think the 3-point volume, as it is for pretty much everyone across the NBA, is up this year. And I'm just looking at Al Horford's stats from the month of December. Um, Cleveland on December 1st, he took 9 threes. And then on Christmas, he took 10 threes. And then this past Sunday, he took 10 threes. And pretty much all of December, he shot at least 6 threes a game in the games that he's played in. I think that that's definitely a little bit higher of a clip than I'd like to see Al Horford shooting the threes at, or shooting that many threes. I'd like to see him more at that 3, 4, 5 range. But I can't comment. I still have to watch some games from this month that he's played in. But just watching the game today, obviously it was not great seeing him put up a goose egg from behind the line. But I thought all those were pretty good looks. I could be wrong. Maybe a look
Yeah,
here or there today wasn't a great look from deep, but I thought those 6 shots he took, he was open and they just didn't fall. But now this begs the question where there's such thing as, Joe Mazzulla will often talk about after games where people will criticize their high volume 3-point shooting. Well, they were open looks, which is true. Again, two things can be true here. The Celtics take 53s a game. 40 of those threes, or 80% of the threes they take, are considered open or wide open looks. But this is where it gets a little bit tricky because you have a guy like Al Horford, who we're talking about, who's been struggling to shoot the three, especially this month. When do you just pull the plug on that and then just have him go back to what he, was good at and can be good at and just getting buckets down low? I mean, obviously, we're of the idea that he's 38 years old, echoing what Franco was saying. Anything you can get out of Al Horford at 38 years old is appreciated. But at some point, you got to know when to flip the switch. Like, completely different example, but 2023 semifinals against the 76ers. We're down 3-2. We make the switch. Again, very different example. We make the switch to go back to the double big lineup with Horford and Robert Williams. So, like, these are the things, and obviously we come from behind and win that series after we go back to the double big lineup. Completely different examples. My point with that is, though, it's going to be on the coaching staff to figure out, is this a hill they're still going to be willing to die on when we're not getting results as of late? So I think Al Horford's getting good shots. I think he's getting arguably the highest quality of shots of any of our players taking the three in terms of being open. But I wouldn't be opposed to them starting to steer away from it a little bit, where he's more focusing on his 2-point game or game down in the paint. Especially watching on Christmas. I mean, he hit 5 threes on Christmas, but in that game, he was in the corner a lot, shooting corner threes, which I just think is a no-no for him or Porzingis. But yeah, I would say he's shooting too many threes, even though they're open looks, and maybe the Celtics should consider having him stay within the 3-point arc moving forward.
And what's a little strange about this Al Horford phenomenon of 3-point shots is it feels like the type of threes he's taking right now are just a bit different than what he has in Celtics history. Feels like a lot of them are off the catch and shoot, but they're not necessarily coming a ton off of the pick and pop. He's standing on the wing a lot of the times, and it's almost like they're trying to use him on the offensive end of the floor as a catch and shoot wing because And again, we talk about his age and his dwindling physicality. Could that be playing a massive factor in why they're not allowing Al Horford to go to work a little bit more inside the paint, work more a little bit as a facilitator inside the paint, kind of switch it up a little bit from him? Maybe they're allowing him to kind of, settle a little bit from beyond that 3-point arc. There's not as much physicality going on out there. There's not as much movement in the game going on from beyond the 3-point arc for Al Horford. And right now, it's just you look at the age thing, you look at the physicality thing with Al Horford. It's really tough to decipher where they can be using Al Horford the most efficiently, because if they're not getting results from 3-point land, the obvious answer is you do stick him more in the post, you stick him more in the paint, especially against teams you can mismatch him against. Yet, if the physicality isn't quite there with Al Horford anymore, and he's going up against more physically dominating teams like the Raptors. The Raptors, they're a fairly physical team. They're missing a couple
Right.
players tonight, such as RJ Barrett, Grady Dick, and of course Emmanuel Quickley's been out for a while. But they're a more physical team, and maybe that's why you saw Al Horford take 6 of his 7 shots from 3-point land tonight. But it's definitely an interesting conversation with Al Horford moving ahead, because there have been nights where Al Horford plays, and yes, he can be that anchor defensively. Now he's not the anchor that he once was, but offensively sometimes he's a net zero, if not a net negative, for the Celtics out on the floor. And I think the Celtics need to figure out, or Jordan Mazzulla's coaching staff, they need to figure out a little bit how they can manage his minutes and manage the time in which he plays out on the floor a little bit better, because this season, again, Al Horford with his age, we don't expect the world out of him, but there have been some really rough performances for Al Horford on the offensive end of the floor. And I think some of that has to do with age, some of that has to do with his physicality, some of that has to do with the Celtics' offensive game plan as a whole. Sometimes I think Al Horford's role in the Celtics offense causes him to rush a couple of open threes, a couple of open shots where you just kind of look at it and go, maybe if that's another wing or another player, the shot is coming a little bit more in rhythm than how Al Horford shoots his 3-point balls. Al Horford kind of has that wonky, he kind of puts his hand on top of the ball. Sometimes his release is a little bit slower. And you got to remember too, Al Horford was raised in the NBA in an era where big men didn't really shoot too many 3-point shots. He came in 2007, and since then, of course, he's evolved his game to become more of a 3-point oriented big and a perimeter oriented big. So he didn't necessarily start out like that. But going forward, I think the conversation of Al Horford, it can be interesting at times. But David, like you said, any contribution you're getting out of Al Horford at this age is much appreciated. And really, as the season moves along, the Celtics, they have Cornette, they have Kata, they of course have Kristaps Porzingis, who did not play tonight. Even Xavier Tillman, who was down the stretch, we thought he would be a little bit bigger of a factor for this Celtics team than he's been this year. If the Celtics can get more minutes out of those guys and really lean more on Porzingis as the season rolls along, because Porzingis been in and out of the lineup, we kind of want to manage his minutes a little bit at this point in time. But maybe as the season goes further, you kind of push the throttle on him a little bit, and hopefully he's in the lineup a bit more. Maybe that's when Al Horford, his efficiency is maximized within this ball club.